guys, we're privileged to have Chris Ackerson here with us. I always want to say Ankerson, but it's not A-N, it's A-C. But it's Ackerson with us with Every Man a Warrior. I've known Chris for several years now. I think we first met up in Louisville at Southern Seminary when we were doing some ISI leadership training up there. And Chris is very involved in helping men to disciple other men using the Every Man a Warrior material. So I asked Chris to come up and share. He can't share, a lot of deep, dark stuff that he would like to, but hopefully he can go to a 30,000 foot level and give us some good information about discipling and how Every Man a Warrior can help you to be a discipler in your church and in your community. And so, Chris, I want to give it to you. It's all yours now.
I'm up. All right. Well, hey guys, I appreciate it. I think this is really cool what Mike does. Background wise, I come from a similar in terms of ministry to Mike with a ministry in Chattanooga that did Iron Sharpens Iron conferences. And we were working to help, churches and men figure out what it looked like, not just to follow Jesus, but how to become multiplying disciple makers, we would talk about. And biblically, we had it down. I mean, there's no question it's what we're called to do. But we often struggle to actually see results and to get traction on it. And so my mentor showed up one day with a resource that he said, "Hey, I think this is going to do it, and I want to share with you guys what we've learned." And so we talk about this in terms of changing a culture for Christ. Mike, is my screen good? We all good there?
Looks good to me.
Okay. And you got in your invitation that I'm going to talk about engineering principles for being an expert builder of men, because I think that's what we need to strive to be as guys that are in men's ministry. We need to be expert builders of these guys that God is giving to us. I know we've all seen these stats as men's ministry guys. If you haven't, I won't read them to you. You can see them on the screen. But one thing stands out to me in this because we've been sharing this for, well over a decade. It's been in most men's ministry slide decks. But that middle stat, 7 men of every 10 men going to church on a regular basis have a major problem with pornography. That's probably not a surprise to you guys. We address it a lot at Iron Sharpens Iron conferences and all that. But what stands out is until 2 years ago, that number was a 5. And so there are things that aren't getting better. We are truly in a battle, and men are in a battle, and we've got to figure out the tools that we've got out there to truly help impact their lives. That's what we believe Every Man a Warrior is a tool in the mix. We know that God has gifted a lot of people with a lot of good stuff, but we think there's a special niche maybe that he's given us with this. And so these the books with the color on the covers is our core training process, and that's what we are, as a training process. And so it's very simple. In fact, sometimes I'll refer to it as this is the primary school stuff that I know in my life as a church guy for my entire life. I missed some primary training. I jumped to high school and college level Christian education without learning skills to walk with God. And so that's what our first book does, is we go back to very basic stuff, and we train guys in skills to have quiet times, to learn how to memorize and meditate in the Word, how to have personal prayer with God, not just corporate, being able to pray over a meal and open and close a meeting, but personal prayer. And then we take those skills in books 2 and 3 and apply them to practical areas in a man's life so that they can sharpen those skills in areas that are truly important in their lives. The fourth book, the white one, it goes right with that stat of 7 out of 10 men in the church having problems with pornography. After 9 years of track record of what we were doing with the first 3 training books, we took those skills and applied them to the issue of pornography. And we've really learned that these skills are the tools to attack any kind of addiction. And so there's the core of the books of what we've got. I don't really want to make this a commercial, but I wanted to give you guys an idea of who we were. But here's what's happened in 11 years is Every Man a Warrior has truly proven to be a multiplier. I promise you, it's not because we have the fanciest books or the best marketing, because we do not. But one of the things that we have seen happen is out of the men who will go through that initial 3-book training series, about 50% of them are going on and leading their own groups. And the math behind that, we've all done multiplication math of what it would look like if we discipled effectively. And we are seeing some incredible things happen. And so you can see some of these things on the screen, that we're in 63 countries around the world. We've been translated into now 26 languages. We've got 41 international leaders. We've got staff here in the US. What blows my mind with this, because I'm a small business guy, I own a business here in Chattanooga, along with working in ministry, is this happened without a business plan put together by a man. We are in amazement of what God has been doing. We don't take any credit for it, but we have tried to figure out what was it God was doing when he was writing Every Man a Warrior through Lonnie Berger, who's the author and my boss. And so we begin to talk about this in terms of engineering principles. There are some core principles that we think are leading to these results. And like Mike said, I won't be able to go deep into these like I would maybe at an iron sharpens iron, or if we had a longer period of time. So I'm going to touch on some of them pretty quickly, and there's a couple that I will try and go a little deeper on. The first one, and we know this as men's ministry guys, if we're going to change a culture for Christ, we have to get them in. I'm speaking to the choir here, but a piece that I do think I missed in some of my life in ministry was, if we're going to reach men, we've got to be practical and relevant. And so I already talked about those topics that we touch in books 2 and 3. These are the areas that take up 90% of our mental energy as men. These are the places where we're fearful of failing, anxiety comes in. These are the things where we're sweating it. We got to help guys with those areas. We've got to equip men to win the battles that they fight every day. We can't just go teach them biblical lessons unless those lessons carry on into the practical areas of their life. The second engineering principle is, we believe you've got to have a biblical template if you're going to have effective men's ministry. Now, that's more than just having scripture included. It's definitely more than, I'm a strategic thinker. I come up with a lot of good plans for things. Chris's plans are okay, but if we're not working off a template that's driven by the word, we're going to be missing something. Now, this is our simple template. Our catchphrase is, we help men walk with God, succeed in life, and spiritually multiply. But these are tied to what we call building blocks. And we start with the Great Commandment. This was shocking to me when I kind of first learned this, when I went through Every Man a Warrior. I knew the Great Commandment: love God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself, right? That is missing a key middle piece if you don't know that verse. Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul. This is the first and the greatest commandment. Now, I was drawn to starting with the Great Commission because I'm a guy. I like to get busy and do things. To learn how to have an intimate relationship with God is a little bit foreign to guys. And so it takes work and intentionality for us to do that. So this is where we start with our basic skill of quiet time with the guy. But then we also want to follow Jesus's example and help men become men of the word. That's what Jesus was, to memorize and meditate on the word and to become men of prayer. And then you'll see in the middle, here's those topics again, these practical topics. But those aren't there just because they're the things we know men deal with today. If you go back to 1 Timothy 3 and Titus 1, where Paul's telling us what it looks like to be a leader in the church, to be an elder or a deacon, guess what? 2,000 years ago, they needed to deal with marriage and raising children and money and work and sex and moral purity and dealing with hard times. These are the key things that God through Paul put in and said, this is how we develop leaders out of men. And it can be really easy to use those things from those passages to disqualify a guy, but we push in to say, no, this should be our template to develop leaders out of men. And then when you've developed that into guys, now we are truly ready to make our lives count through the Great Commission, to go out and share this with other people. So a biblical template is key. The next engineering principle, we've got to use teaching methods that impact retention and learning. This is not a Christian study. This was taken from a secular study of how people retain things they're taught. Those top three are passive learning. It's kind of what we're doing tonight, right? We might get to 20%. We've got some audio visual going on. But if we really want to drive toward what we would call, A-level retention, 90%, we've got to help guys get to a point where not only have they taken it in, but they've got a tool, a process, a skill to go and teach others. One of the key things we do with the quiet times we teach guys is when we gather together, they have to share one of their quiet times from the week before. It's a simple and beautiful part of what we do, and it's a beginning step for a man to realize he can teach biblical truth to other people. It's not just the professionals that do it. It's meant for all of us. Now, we added the bottom one. Memorization and meditation is just part of the heartbeat of what we do. But we want to help guys learn in a way that gets them to A-level retention of what they're learning. Now, I want to spend just a little bit more time on this one because this has really been a useful tool for me, especially as I've talked to churches. It can be really easy to have your books and your training resource and head into a church and have it sound like you're going, well, what you guys are doing, that's not quite right, but what I've got's the thing, right? So we sound like, maybe a little arrogant in what we do, and we don't want to be that. And so we begin talking about, well, what is it we see out of discipleship? And we think it's important that as an engineering principle, we clearly define when we use the word discipleship, what we mean. And so to simplify it, we got down to these three different levels of discipleship. The first is lecture format. This is what we experience on Sunday mornings. This is what we experience at a great Iron Sharpens Iron conference. This is the large format teaching. Now, if our learning pyramid's right, we're probably only getting to about 5% retention on that. But man, that 5% may be life-changing to a man. From scripture, we see stories like the Sermon on the Mount and the feeding of the 4,000 and 5,000. So we know Jesus did this. This is critical in our walk, in our discipleship as we follow Jesus, that we have large gatherings. And large might be 50, or it might be 5,000, but it is important, this corporate time for us to learn. So that's what we'll call D1 discipleship. The middle one, D2, is small group format. Now, this is Sunday school. This is, small group has become such a core part of so many churches. This is a key thing in the life of a believer. These groups vary in size quite a bit. We put 10 to 20, but it could be a lot of different numbers. I always point out this might even be a couples group. This might not just be men. This might be something we're doing with our wives. But the goal here is not about the size. It's not even completely about the content. It's about establishing community and relationship. Think about the beautiful men's groups you've seen, that these guys have been together for years. They've raised kids together. They've been at hospitals when somebody's hurt. They're the ones you can call at 2 a.m. This is so important. And this is where most of the things that we would see, maybe it's something like an Iron Sharpens Iron, most of the resources that we see out there probably fit best into this category. And this is maybe 20 to 30% retention rate. We're getting way better. We see Jesus did this. We know this is critical that we have this. But we get to D3. This is where we believe every man a warrior fits. And it's something that's a much smaller footprint as we raise up men, and it is training for leadership. Now, our experience, and some of this is just real life experience, we believe this works best in a group of 4 to 7 men. My favorite size group is 5. I don't know why, it's just worked really well. I have used Every Man a Warrior and other tools in what we'll call the apprentice model of 1-to-1. But the goal in leadership development here is transformation. We've got to equip men with the right tools. And our long-term goal is that we're going to truly see multiplication. I know in my ministry time, when I was doing local ministry with churches, it was frustrating that what guys wanted to ask, when we finished something really good, they wanted to know what's next. What's the next really cool thing you're going to bring to me? When we're doing multiplication, we've got to help guys begin to ask who's next and who they're going to pass it on to. So we focus on skills and spiritual disciplines in a guy's life. And our goal here is that we're going to get to this 50 to 100% retention rate. We think this is really what Jesus modeled with the apostles. We'd see it when he would narrow it down. to the three key guys. And so this is not a progression. You don't leave D1 to go to D2 to do D3. All of these should be a part of a man's discipleship walk as a follower of Jesus. But that D3, we need to expand. This is the key to us really changing a culture for Christ if we can raise up leaders. Now, if we're doing that, if we're truly training for leadership, we have learned that there's an engineering principle that we need a step-by-step process, both to build skills. You'll hear that a lot with Every Man a Warrior. We treat these as skills that a man can learn. A skill is something you're not very good at first, but if you practice it long enough, you become skilled. We understand that in all other parts of our world, sports, work, whatever. We know that you start without a skill and you grow as you practice and are trained. So I'm not going to break out this whole process, but this is what our process looks like. You know, the bottom is that book 1 with the basic skills. Up the side is all the things that we're working with a man in the second 2 books, the practical areas of life. And if we can get a guy through that first year, which the right side is, what we are seeing is half of them are catching the picture and they're cycling back around a second time in order to lead a group of guys through. It is very consistent that what we hear from guys is that second year is when it really begins to sink in. The first year they're going through a process, they're seeing it the first time. Something different happens to a man when he takes the responsibility to lead other guys, and having a simple tool like Every Man a Warrior has opened the doors to so many men to be able to use this process to be disciple makers. But where are we taking these guys? This is the other one I may spend just a little bit more time on. We wanted to be sure we knew where we were taking guys. It would be easy, even with Every Man a Warrior, it could just become another process-driven thing. And if we're not really taking guys somewhere, if we're just checking the box that they went through Every Man a Warrior, we didn't feel like we were really serving them well. And so we wanted to help define this. So this level 7 man of the word, we want to train men to become level 7. So let me just kind of walk through these and see if these don't sound familiar to you. Level 1, scripture that you've heard and listened to, but you've forgotten. It's kind of going in one ear and out the other. Now, I think that's what the world experiences, right? That's what people who don't know Jesus obviously experience. So we want to get past that. Level 2, we've heard it, we kind of know it. And hey, we've got cell phones, which I love. We can at least look it up if we need to. I value that. I've got a lot of level 2 scripture running around in my head. But at level 3, we start to get a little deeper. We've heard it. We may have even studied it. This is a lot of what happens in those D2 groups, right? We're diving into things we're learning, but if we haven't then turned it into application, it's just head knowledge. So we get to level 4. This one hurt when my boss first put this up here, because Every Man a Warrior guys are kind of known as the scripture memory guys, because we memorize a good bit of scripture. But level 4, we've memorized it, we can quote it. But again, if we haven't applied it, if we haven't put it to work, it's still head knowledge. And so we don't want guys just to be scripture memorizers so they can show off to their buddies or at church and look extra holy because they know some scripture. That's not the point. So at level 5, if we can train a man not just to memorize, but to begin to meditate, to go deeper, our definition for meditation is asking questions with a purpose. When a man begins to do that, this is how God uses scripture to develop convictions. And this is when men begin to feel that need to apply. They've got to do something with it, so that at level 6, they actually begin to put it into practice. When men begin to put scriptural biblical truths into practice in their life, especially in those areas that are so practical and relevant, it turns into a story. As they experience success, now they've got a testimony, so that at level 7, they now begin to teach biblical truths to others. And that may be in their family, we hope. It's wives, it's children, it's neighbors, it's brothers at church. This is where we're working to help men get in their relationship to God through his word, is to be level 7 men of the word. When we get men there, we truly begin to see changes in the culture. We've got such great testimonies of the change of culture in families in the first place. But then what we're seeing around the world, this truly makes a difference in a man's life. Excuse me. So those are our 6 engineering principles for being an expert builder of men's ministry. We've got to effectively reach the men. We need a biblical template if we're going to have effective men's ministry. We've got to use the right kind of teaching methods if we're going to impact retention and learning. We need to clearly define discipleship. We do leadership training. That's what expert building is leadership training. We need step-by-step processes that build skills and that are then repeatable, easily repeatable for other guys. And we got to have the right target. We're training men to be level 7 men of the word. Guys have got to have scripture as the core of who they are in their relationship with God, because that's where he speaks most clearly to us.